another episode of Zone Coverage. I'm Cody Sheeler here with Ryan Rue, as always, ready to talk about some NFL action. But this week, we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of just talking about what went down over the weekend, we are going to do a little playoff picture prediction, little triple P action going on there, and talk about how we think the playoff picture will look by the end of the year. This one has been it's contentious. We've hit on it at times, calling this team a division winner, calling this team a wild card team, and so on and so forth. But now we are going to put it onto metaphorical paper and lay it down, and so then at the end of the year we can see who did better and who got more right. So obviously, in each conference, we will have the 4 division winners in order of who we think will be the 1 through the 4 seed, and then 3 wild card teams. I'll let you, like a coin toss, pick NFC or AFC first. I'll let you pick.
Let's do the NFC first.
Okay, NFC. I mean, we've talked about it before, but we're pretty set on 5 of those teams. And so for me, I think the Packers will finish as the number 1 seed. I've talked about them as being the team that I like a lot, and for a few weeks, and I just think that they are putting it together. They have beat the Cardinals. They just beat the Rams this past week pretty handily, and I've talked about how I think that defense is something pretty good, and I think they continue that. They are currently a half game behind the Cardinals, with since the Packers, I believe, have not had their bye, but they do have the tiebreaker. So I like the Packers to end up as that number 1 seed, especially given the fact that their schedule down the stretch isn't too tough. I mean, let me look this up. They've got a few difficult ones thrown in there, but I mean, they've got their bye coming up this week, and then they've got Bears, Browns, Lions, Vikings, and then which I think are all super winnable, and then a matchup with the Ravens that could go either way. So I think that makes them, a pretty good bet to get that number 1 seed, especially while some of the other teams seem to be struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been a Green Bay hater, if you will, throughout the season, or a Green Bay doubter, I should say. But, I mean, especially after this weekend, taking on the Rams, and both teams didn't necessarily play bad. I mean, it was a good game for both teams. But the Packers beat the Rams at almost their best, pretty much. So the Rams were a lot of people's favorite in the NFC, but they just handled them easy.
Packers defense showed up, man.
Yeah, so I mean, the Packers as the number 1 seed, I can definitely see it happening, because I can't see the Cardinals lasting much longer for the rest of the year to secure a top seed. And I'll also throw in there a division winner. So I know that you have the Cardinals, winning the division. I actually have the Rams coming in at last second to take the division, because, again, I don't know when Kyler Murray is going to be. I mean, hopefully he's back next week, but when he is back next week, is he going to be 100%? Obviously, this team can win with their backups, but they weren't playing outstanding teams to begin with to beat those teams. So,
I wanted to do that because I like the Rams, but they're not. What they've done lately has made it tough. They have 2 games behind the Cardinals. They obviously have 1 more game to play against each other, which would make them split it, and then I don't know how the tiebreakers fall. But I mean, so the Cardinals having games against the Bears, Rams, Lions, Colts, Cowboys, Seahawks. I mean, if they win 3 of those, they get to 12. That means the Rams have to win 5 of their 6. And so I just think, if they were at 8-3 right now, or if they were tied with 9 wins, then I would give it to the Rams. But I think they've dug themselves a little hole that I don't know if they're going to get out of, because they're going to need the Cardinals to really struggle. And, other than, I mean, they could lose to the Rams, Colts, maybe Colts, maybe Cowboys, but there's not a lot of tough games on there. So that's why I have them finishing third, because I'm not really huge believing in the Cardinals, because I think they've got some holes, but I think that they've already got up to 9 wins, and that's pretty good already. So I obviously I've been a Rams believer this whole time, but what they've been doing recently has not been looking really good.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the Rams schedule, like you said, they're at 7 wins as opposed to Arizona's 9. I see for the 6 remaining games for LA, 5 of them are easily winnable, I think, for them.
I wouldn't say easily.
Well, I'm putting faith in the Rams to take care of Arizona pretty swimmingly. They're not going to lose another game to them, is my thought. And I think the Ravens in week 17, I think is going to give them, a little bit of a challenge. And it's a winnable game for sure, but it's on the road in Baltimore, obviously. So they could very well win the rest of the year. They could. They're also on a 3-game losing streak, so they could they could just dig themselves further into a hole. They could be this year's version of the Bucs, where they make a wild card spot, but they're not a wild card team, right? So the Rams don't need to be at home to be effective at all.
Yeah, I still have a ton of faith in them once they get to the playoffs, probably more than the Cardinals. I mean, they'll need to turn it around a little bit, because those 3 losses, they haven't even been particularly close losses either. They've kind of been getting outplayed, so that's not a good sign for things to come. But if they can right the ship, then I like them a lot in the playoffs. I just think the Cardinals got a bunch of wins banked up and don't have anything looking too bad, so they're gonna have to. But I mean, Seahawks in week 18, like, that's one that I'd be like, oh, maybe they could win, but I mean, what are the Seahawks going to be playing for at that point? So it's like, maybe the Cardinals aren't playing for much either, but I just think they've given themselves a little bit of a cushion, similar to what the Bucs have done. I've got them finishing as that 2 seed, mainly because they have a pretty cushy schedule. If I just pull this up, I mean, they've got the Bills in 2 weeks, but I mean, I am giving that one to the Bucs right now, and then Falcons, Saints, 2 games with the Panthers, and a game with the Jets. I think they probably might drop 2 of these. I mean, I could see them, maybe losing to the Saints again. Who knows? The Saints seem to have their number, and then Panthers, I don't know. We'll see what happens with them, but that defense is frisky, and I mean, this is a team that lost to Washington a few weeks ago. But it's really between them and Green Bay for that number 1 spot. And since Green Bay already has, I guess they're a half game over them. So Tampa Bay could end up taking that, but I think those 2, I like to finish 1 and 2 at the top of the conference.
Yeah, and another tricky spot for me is Dallas, because obviously, Dallas is going to win their division, but
it's getting closer.
They're going to win the division, but the thing that's intriguing me about them is obviously Philly is in the hunt for a wild card spot, and Dallas's schedule. I mean, they have 4 divisional games coming up, so these are must wins for them. 2 of them are against Washington. Even if they split those games, a win is a win. They could probably take out New Orleans, I'd think, and the Giants shouldn't be an issue, but, we'll see. There's been upsets happening a lot in the league lately, but week 18 between Philadelphia and Dallas, that could very well be, a Philadelphia playoff berth potential game. They play Arizona late in the season. Maybe Arizona locks in the divisional spot by this time. So Arizona may not be playing for much other than maybe a last-second surge for a first overall seed. But Dallas is a little fishy to me just for how much they've been kind of, I don't want to say been rocky or anything, but 1-3 in the last 4 games is not a good sign, especially since I think the Denver game was easily winnable, and Vegas, it was just a thriller altogether. And Kansas City didn't have a great showing. They don't have a great defense. So, I mean, Dallas is what intrigues me. But in terms of the wild card spots, I'm kind of wanting to see.
Before we get onto that, I want you to put your 4 division winners in order. What you think seeding wise? Because I'm referring back to this when the playoffs are locked in, and I want to see who gets this right.
So I think Green Bay will be the first overall seed. I agree with that. I think Tampa will probably be 2. And then from there, I'm probably putting the Cowboys at least 1 ahead of the NFC West winner, because I think the Cowboys are going to have, they're going to turn things around, and whoever the NFC West winner will be the 4th seed, and most likely the person in second place is going to be the 5th seed in the NFC West. You're probably going to get Cardinals Rams first round, I imagine.
So you're saying Rams win the division? So you're putting Rams 4, Cardinals 5?
I think the Rams will pull an upset and win the rest of the season and win the division. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got Packers, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Cowboys for my division winners, and the Rams as a 5th team in the first wild card. Obviously, one of those teams will get that wild card, barring a huge collapse. But then we've got 2 more wild card spots open, and this is where, unlike in the AFC, which we'll get to, where it seems like everything's up for grabs, this is really where it comes down to, other than jockeying for position, this is where it's, really up for grabs, and anybody other than the Lions technically could take it. So this is, I'll let you've obviously seen my picks, but I'll let you put yours out there, and then we'll see from there.
So, I mean, Minnesota and Philadelphia stick out as the remaining 2 wildcard teams. I feel like people have like an underdog sort of attachment to Philadelphia right now, and Minnesota could be that extra NFC North team. But, I mean, I'm not going to count out New Orleans yet, because I'm sure New Orleans is going to pull some trick up their sleeves and barely squeeze in it. That 7th seed probably. I mean, you can't really put much doubt onto Sean Payton when it comes to making the playoffs, even though they have Trevor Siemian at quarterback. I'm not sure when Jameis is supposed to come back, or if he's
out for the year.
So Trevor Siemian is going to have to lead the charge, or we're going to have to get this Taysom Hill offense up to full speed. But I'm not counting the Saints out for the time being. Minnesota, something tells me Minnesota might have a choke potential with this. I think Minnesota might fall out of the playoff picture, because, they haven't been amazing. They've just had a favorable NFC conference to compete in this year, where they're actually in the playoff picture when they're not necessarily a playoff team. So obviously they have Detroit coming up. They could easily lose to Pittsburgh. They can lose to the Rams. They could lose to Green Bay. And they play 2 games against Chicago, more division matchups. I can see them possibly winning both, but they can probably split games too. So that's 4 losses to add on, and then 2 wins. 2 wins. So that brings them to 7-10, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Just easily lose to Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is they're not good.
They can easily lose to Pittsburgh. Minnesota's not a playoff team, and they're just in a good spot right now, and they can enjoy it while it lasts.
Are you sure? Because their losses all by 1 score. They have not lost a game by more than 8 points. Are to Bengals, Cardinals, Browns, Cowboys, Ravens, 49ers. The Browns are probably the worst of that bunch, but those are a bunch of playoff.
I mean, are the Browns or the Niners? I mean, the Niners are competing for a wild card spot too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Niners are actually
the people who are right next to them that they're competing with. So
I'm saying this is a team that's played a bunch of good teams, and yeah, they're 5-6, but they've, there are a couple things here or there, a couple last-second field goals from having a better record. So I think their talent is much better than their record, and I'm looking at the NFC and saying all you got to do is get to 9 wins. And if I'm giving them Lions 2 games against the Bears and the Steelers, that's 9 wins. And who knows what the Rams are looking like. They just beat the Packers, so why can't they beat them again? I think this team could get to 9 or 10, and that's why I have them as the 6th seed. Because I'm looking at it as all you got to do is get to 9 wins and you're probably locked in there. So I think I like their path to 9 wins better than any other of these teams below them. And I'm not gonna try to guess how tiebreakers come into play, especially with all this, other than head to head. So I'm leaving that out of there. But I think the Vikings definitely will make the playoffs.
And I also have to keep my eye on San Fran because San Fran could easily sneak into this. They play Seattle up next, and then they play Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston, Rams. So Tennessee is beatable. They are one of the best teams in the AFC, but they are beatable. And if the Niners know how to play football in Week 17 to beat Houston, and they have a very important game against Atlanta because Atlanta's in the hunt as well. But 3 wins with those teams, Seattle, Atlanta, Houston, maybe they pull an upset on a Cincinnati or a Tennessee, and I think the Rams would take them out. But that brings the Niners to at least 9 wins with those 3 wins, maybe 4. So even the Niners are in there. If I'm picking the remaining 2 wildcard teams on here, I'm going to throw Philly in there. I think there's going to be a late Philly special in there. And I'll go out here and say Saints. Saints might come out of nowhere. Both teams that are out of the wild card picture, I think will be in the wild card. Saints and Philly, and they'll get crushed in the first round. But
yeah, I mean Philly is my sleeper team here, just because when I look at their record, I mean they've got 4 pretty easy wins coming. Obviously, they should have beat the Giants this past week, but you got Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington. That should be 4 wins, get them to 9, and then they've got Cowboys Week 18. Who knows what's happening there? So
I mean, they still have a shot at the division, so they're going to be a.
Technically yes, but they'll need the Cowboys to falter a little bit. But
the Cowboys need to lose 2 games, and if they have the same record on Week 18, then it's literally whoever wins gets the division. So yeah, and I mean, who does Dallas play again coming up? It's like they could lose to New Orleans, they could lose to Arizona. So we'll see. But I think Philly, that's my underdog, and then I'm going with the Saints as the other one. Now the Saints could play the Bucks in the first round, so maybe that'll be interesting. But
so you're saying Philly as a 6th seed?
I'll put Philly as the last seed, I think. And then I'll put Saints at 6.
All right. I'm filling yours in because I've got Vikings as a 6th and then the Eagles just barely getting in. And obviously, I mean, if there's a team that's going to crash it, it'll be the Niners. But I don't know. The Vikings, I think, I'm pretty confident with them making it. And then I just think, some about this, the Eagles' schedule is really what's doing it for me. And so that'll leave.
Can't trust Kirk Cousins when the pressure's on him. That's all I'm saying. Can't trust him.
Can you trust Trevor Siemian?
No, I trust Sean Payton. The thing, and I don't trust Mike Zimmer making the playoffs. He's an outdated coach, so I don't see the Vikings making it.
Yeah, well, they beat the Packers, so
they're doing pretty good. And the Cardinals beat the Rams, but are we picking the Rams or the Cardinals next time they play? You know what I mean? So upsets happen. The Packers are obviously the best team, but
looking good. But we can move on to the AFC. This is much more up for grabs in this conference. So I don't know if you have your pick for who's going to finish atop the league there.
The top of the league, as much as I want to say Bills at one point, don't think that's going to happen. I think they're obviously going to have their hands full competing with New England to finish out the rest of the year. But a top seed, I mean, the Ravens stick out to me because I think the Ravens are probably the most complete team moving forward, other than, probably Kansas City or maybe even the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots obviously look like an AFC East winning team. They could win their division, but I think Buffalo's going to turn it around and win their division, and they'll probably be a second or third seed, I imagine. Chiefs will finally, put the lock on their division and win out on that. And Tennessee, obviously, like the Colts had their shot, a very, very, very small shot, but Titans, Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens, I think, are winning their divisions. The Patriots are going to be that fifth seed wild card. I think they're going to barely miss out, but then again, I'm not going to be surprised if they beat Buffalo because Lord knows Bill Belichick is on his coaching hoorah right now, and he's just on a roll. So it could very well happen that the Patriots win the division, but I think Buffalo's going to probably beat.
So who grabs the number 1 seed?
I said the Ravens. I think the Ravens.
Ravens? Okay. See, you know what? I'm looking at the Chiefs schedule here. Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, Steelers, Bengals, Broncos, and honestly, I think they probably win out. I think they'll get to 13 wins. I think they're back to playing like the team that they could be. And honestly, these are all teams that at one point looked scary, but I think they are scarier on paper than they will be on the field. So I'm looking at Chiefs getting to 13, maybe 12 wins. That's probably going to be the tops. And I look at Baltimore, I mean, they've got Steelers, Browns, Packers, Bengals, Rams, Steelers, and obviously there's some divisional stuff there, but I think that's a little bit tougher, and I think that kind of makes them falter in getting to the top seed. So I like the Chiefs actually to end up getting that top seed, and I think the Patriots will win the AFC East, and not only that, but they get the 2 seed because they've got Bills, Colts, Bills, and then Jaguars, Dolphins. So if I'm giving them, Jaguars and Dolphins, I think will definitely be wins. And even if they just split with the Bills and win beat the Colts, that is 12 wins right there. Whereas the Bills, they are a half game behind with the Patriots having their bye already, so they'll have to get one up on them. And if they split with them and then they probably lose to the Bucks, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, probably only 11 wins. So I think they end up getting that first wild card spot. And I think the Patriots, you're talking about complete teams. I think the Patriots are probably playing.
I mentioned them too. I mean,
better football than anybody right now.
The defense is one of the best in the league. They're mostly a run-first offense that's been having great success, and Mac Jones doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So there's not much you can do as an opposing team when the other team doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
When you're playing the Jaguars, they're going to make a mistake damn near every other play. So there's plenty of opportunities to take advantage of it. The Patriots are just, it almost seems picture perfect with their plays. Mac Jones is just fully meshed with this offense, and he's definitely on track for being offensive rookie of the year. And I don't want any Jamar Chase fans saying like, oh, well, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, they have this connection. Mac Jones is leading a Patriots team 1 year removed from Tom Brady, and they are going to make the playoffs, like as a rookie quarterback for Bill Belichick. So there's more of a story with that. He's been more impressive.
But the numbers won't be there. I mean, Chase is still he's got 6 games left. I mean, he could still break the rookie receiving record, and so I mean, he's up there in the thing of touchdowns. I mean, he'll have to play down the stretch. I mean, I think Mac Jones. It depends on because Mac Jones isn't going to have the stats to blow everybody away. But
if he leads the team to a second overall seed, I mean, as a rookie, like they don't exactly have the easiest division in the world either. They're not playing in the I guess the AFC South isn't very much an easy division anymore with the Titans and the Colts. So they play in one of the easier divisions, but
yeah, it's on par with the AFC South. So what's your
between the Ravens and the Chiefs for number 1? I think those are the only 2 that I can see being number 1.
So what's your order of the 4 division winners?
Ravens will be number 1. Bills will be number 2. This actually gets, I'll take that back. I think Chiefs get 2, Bills go 3, Titans 4.
Yeah, Titans, the one that we have not mentioned. They're kind of just. I mean, when they had Derrick Henry, they were the, you know, team everybody was loving. They were playing great. They haven't looked good since then. And honestly, I would pick the Colts to win that division if the Titans didn't have the 2 wins over them. That's just the tough thing there because, you know, the Colts would basically have to win 3 more games than the Titans win down the stretch, and the Titans have the Jaguars, Steelers, Niners, Dolphins, Texans.
I mean,
So I mean
3 of those
that's
games should be guaranteed wins, but then again, they
I
just
mean they
lost to Houston. So
yeah. So I let me look at the Colts schedule because as much as I want, maybe I do want to pick the Colts to
I mean, the
win.
Colts have to play the Raiders, Cardinals, and Patriots, as well as Houston and Jacksonville. So Raiders, Cardinals, I think can handle the Colts, and then the Patriots. I mean, I'm not going to doubt the Patriots for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think they'll probably get 3 of these wins, maybe 4. You know, get to 9 wins. So yeah, I mean Titans will probably get that division, but I don't think it'll be very impressive. And maybe they get Derrick Henry back at the end of the year
because they need to come from behind just to tie Tennessee, but they have to overtake them in order to take the division because Tennessee beat them both times. So they're just kind of in a crappy spot. So I don't think the Colts make it.
Yeah. So wild card, you have what? Patriots is the 5th one.
Yeah, whoever that AFC East team runner-up is going to be, that'll be the 5th seed. I think it'll be the Patriots. And that's going to be a great let's see. That'd be a Tennessee Patriots first round. That'd be interesting. Now, the wild card is where it gets kind of crazy because, I mean, the Chargers are in the playoff picture right now, but the Chargers, like, I mean, I don't know how to feel about this team going forward because they've literally been flip-flopping wins for the past 5 weeks. They've lost 4 of their last 6. All pretty much, 2 of their losses should have been wins, and the wins that they got were, somewhat impressive, but they have to finish out the rest of the season strong, and they don't have a great schedule per se because they got to play Cincinnati, Kansas City, and Vegas, and Denver. They just lost to Denver. Yeah. Obviously, Denver is in the playoff picture too. So the AFC West has like resurrected with the playoff picture now because now the Raiders, Chargers, and Broncos are all like half a game away from each other. I swear, it's so close for them. Yeah, they're all tied right now. And they're all 1 win behind Kansas City. But like you said, Kansas City will probably win out the rest of the year or maybe drop 1 game.
Yeah, but they're doing good.
I don't think Chargers are going to be a playoff team. I don't think they have enough to secure a spot at the end of the season. Something is pulling me towards Las Vegas because I think, all of the adversity that they've had to overcome, this offense almost seems to get better when this team goes through stuff. And I mean, they just won a great game against Dallas on Thanksgiving. They have to play Washington, Kansas City, Cleveland, Denver, Indianapolis, Chargers. They have somewhat of a tough schedule to finish out the rest of the year, but I have a gut feeling with Vegas being the 6th seed, and then for that final seed for the AFC, I'll take the Bengals because I think the Bengals will have at least 1 spot, whether it be 5 through 7. They're not going to beat the Ravens out, obviously, and they can thank the Cleveland Browns for this spot because Cleveland is just falling apart, and I think they should be in this spot other than Cincinnati. But Joe Burrow gets to go to the playoffs and get rolled by the Ravens in the first round.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are the team that miss out. I've talked about how I think their schedule is pretty tough down the stretch. Chargers, Niners, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, Browns. Now, I mean, they certainly should get 3 or 4 of those. I don't think they do. I think they probably end up with 9 or 10 wins. I like the Colts to end up with one of those spots. Obviously, they're at 6-6, so they're a little bit behind them. But I think what Jonathan Taylor is doing is reminiscent of kind of how the Titans get on that roll in previous years and have gotten that final spot. I think that what Carson Wentz is doing is good enough. The offense is playing well, and the defense is looking really good. So I like the Colts, and then really, to me, it comes down to who emerges second in the AFC West. Who is the one that ends up? Because I think the AFC West is going to produce another playoff team. Obviously, somebody will have to beat, the others more often than not. But I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. Doing it down the stretch. That loss to the Broncos was not good, but they have, a game against the Giants and the game against the Texans that should be able to pad the win column. And then if they can just, beat the Broncos and the Raiders, that's 10 wins. Obviously tiebreakers I'm not sure exactly how they're going to play off both in division and in conference. Cause obviously the Bengals could end up in a tie and they could get it. Especially with these two teams playing next week, but I don't know. I like the Chargers. I think the talent will be there. I'm just not convinced with the Raiders, and they had been on a skid before this game against the Cowboys, and it getting kind of blown out by the Bengals and the Chiefs, and then the Broncos. I'm just not going to put my faith in Teddy Bridgewater to do anything in terms of getting a team to the playoffs. So I like the Colts to get that 6th spot, and the Chargers to get the 7th one.
I mean, this is the conference that I'm definitely going to watch over the NFC for sure.
What was your 6 and 7 again? Raiders, Bengals in that order, or
Raiders, Bengals in that order? Yep. Okay. It's going to be a lot closer than I think people realize for that AFC West, especially.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to have to see, what happens with a lot of divisional games still to come, because I think tiebreakers, across the board in these wildcard matchups and even division positioning are going to be a huge deal. So we're obviously going to have to see how that works out. But, let's see. Do you have the Browns, you mentioned them being out of it. They're 6 and 6. They could still make a run. They've got a tough schedule, so I don't expect them to do it. But if you're looking at it, it's like even down to the Steelers, 5-1. They're probably out. But you've got 12 teams fighting for playoff spots, and so they certainly something interesting down the stretch could happen. But yeah, I think AFC West to me feels like a lock for one of them, and then I just like Colts over Bengals, because even though Mixon's kind of doing a similar thing, I think the Bengals probably will be the team that burns me out of any of these teams. But I don't know, I can't look away from the Colts, and speaking that I want the Colts to I want them to win the division, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
No, they have too much to hope for to win that division, I think. I wouldn't be surprised necessarily if the Colts made it, because they do have a good thing going on, but in terms of winning the division, can't see it. And Denver for sure can't see it. I know they've been kind of this sneaky, weird team, but there's no way they finish out on a high note to win it out with Bridgewater at quarterback, like you said. So you think Cincinnati will fall out. I think the Chargers will fall out.
Mm-hmm.
That just goes to show the wild card race for the AFC is going to be real tight. We'll see who pitches an 8-team playoff next year, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking about this yesterday. 32 teams in the NFL. Why don't we just do a 32-team playoff? Everybody gets a chance. Let's say fuck it.
Because then the Detroit Lions could just have a miracle happen and win the Super.
But that's not going to happen. That's the thing.
No, but the 16th seed in the NCAA tournament, they win every other year against the first seed?
No, they've won once. A 16 over a 1.
Maybe it's the 15th seed I'm thinking of. Sorry, the 15th against 2. Yes. I understand the appeal towards it, but those same people that pitch a 32-team playoff are the same people who are against the lottery, like the draft lottery. But it's like, oh, but every team has a chance to get the first round pick. Isn't that exciting? No, because this team they almost made the playoffs. And now they have the first overall pick. It's kind of backwards when you think about it. I can't picture a 32 team playoff, maybe an 18 playoff from each conference, but that's literally half the league making the playoffs. Not every single team should have a chance.
Professional sports, let's keep everybody involved. Because what? I mean, the Packers or the Cardinals, they're going to beat the Lions. Like, it's football. Like, football, you have flukes in basketball because, one dude can get hot from three and, win you a game. But football still, comes down to a team game. I mean, even in these 6 and 7 team playoffs, it's normally the 1s and the 2 seeds that make it on. So I just think it'd be fun and, it'd keep teams involved and, get hot at the end of the year. I'm just saying, you got the perfect number of
tune-up games for top seeds.
But this way you get nobody's got complaints. Everybody's got a shot. It's the best of the best every year. I'd like to see it happen.
But then it means nothing to make the playoffs. It literally means nothing because everybody.
No, it's all about seeding. It's all about seeding.
But then again, you don't have really that big of an advantage at the end of the day. Like if you don't make the playoffs, then you're still in a rebuilding process, or you barely missed it, or you're an inch away. You're the Las Vegas Raiders. You're the Cardinals from last year. Like you barely missed the playoffs, but guess what? Cardinals are one of the top teams in the league now. Will they finish there? Probably not. Raiders at one point were leading the division, and that division is super close right now. I mean, that's where the true enjoyment with sports comes, is when their team finally prevails.
Just call the first round a play-in game. It's not technically the playoffs, but it's kind of the playoffs. And now we've got an 8-team playoff once these teams win. I'm just, you've got the perfect amount of teams. You got 32. You might as well do it, Why not? That's all I'm saying. It only adds, 2 more games. Let's, chop off something. I don't know. Why not? I was just thinking there's 32 teams and, the math works out. And,
the math works out for right now for 16 and 16 apiece, sure. But I mean, I saw a headline the other day that the NFL wants to expand in the next 10 years to like 36 teams or something. So what are we going to do then? Are all 36 teams going to make it when the expansion?
No, that's when you start. No, that's when you start just, all right, or either you give the 4 best teams a bye or you don't let the 4 worst teams in.
So now we're including buys with the new playoffs. So that's with the play-in, there's now going to be more buys, is what you're saying?
I'm just saying right now it works. 32 teams. If it does good, everybody likes tournaments. Everybody likes,
and we have a tournament.
If week 18 was the Lions playing the Packers instead of the Packers backups, playing the Lions, wouldn't that be better? Wouldn't that be more fun?
I'm sure the Packers don't care because they played their ass off the whole year and they got to put in their backups week 18. I'm sure they're relaxing.
Hey, stakes is always stakes is the best part of sports.
For sure.
So I'd always want more stakes.
Money at the end of the day, because I'm sure the Detroit Lions fans would be like, "Oh my God, we're in the playoffs."
And why can't? I mean, then you're looking at the Seahawks, who they might finish as a 15th or the 14th seed, but they're a little more dangerous than the rest of these other teams.
I mean, are they? Like, they look terrible.
Well, they're more dangerous than the Bears and the Lions. They're still not good,
and
but
Atlanta is the 8th seed for the NFC right now. But who are they competing against? You know what I mean? Like, yes, they're 1 spot away from the wild card, but Atlanta is not going to do anything.
Yeah. So the Seahawks, Russell Wilson gets it cooking. We get healthy. 14th seed. Let's make a run. But at the end of the day, the only reason that I even talk about this is because we know it wouldn't change anything. It's just like with a 16-team college football playoff. Yeah, it'll be great, but at the end of the day, you're gonna get the same thing at the end. So why not make it more fun getting there? Why not make it more fun getting there? Because why not? These 8 and 9 matchups should be fun. While the Packers blow out this team and that team, but at the end of the day, you're gonna get down to the 8 and the 4 best teams, and that's when it gets fun. That's what I'm
College football
talking about.
playoff is different because that seeding is opinionated. It's voted on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of different. A 16 team college football playoff has to happen, or at least an 8 or 10, or whatever you want to do. Like there has to be
8 or
more.
12. But at the end of the day,
we just extended it to 7 teams on each conference make it. This is the second year that they've done this, and now people want to change it more. It's like the playoffs have barely changed over the years, and now we just got to make it completely different.
I have not heard of this being legitimately proposed at all. I was just thinking yesterday, well, the math adds up. Let's freaking do it. Give me tournaments. I love stakes. But that is our hypothetical playoff restructuring part of the podcast, and we can move on to some more hypotheticals, which is the MVP race, because hypothetically there will be an MVP, but I don't know if anybody deserves it at this point. Honestly, I think the most deserving player of winning MVP right now is Jonathan Taylor, or even friggin' Derrick Henry.
He's got the story to back him up.
Still give it to Taylor, but is Jonathan Taylor is playing better football than anybody right now.
It depends what your definition of that is, but I can be saying Tom Brady is playing the best football because he's 44 years old.
And that's what we both have Tom Brady as first. He's fallen off from his he's going to throw 50 touchdowns and all this stuff pace. It's still possible with some big games. He's
not 28.
He's not looking as great, but really because for a while I was like, if or when Tom Brady wins his MVP, he's having a career year, all this stuff. But now it just seems like kind of that 2017 year where it's like everybody's fallen off. Carson Wentz got injured, so I guess we give it to Tom Brady. Yeah, he's still having a good year, but he's struggled lately. Matt Stafford's looked terrible the past 3 games to the point where I've dropped him out of my top 5. Josh Allen isn't looking great either, and he failed to score against the Jaguars, which probably won't matter to a lot of people, but to me matters a lot, because I don't know how you can be the best player, the MVP, and not score a touchdown against the Jaguars. So that hurts him on my end. And I honestly think the guy who's really the only one, well, I guess there's 2 that are trending up, are former MVPs, and that's Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. They're probably playing better on the field than any of these other quarterbacks right now. They just got off to not the greatest starts of the year. So, I've put Jonathan Taylor at 5th in mine. I'm changing him to 4th over Lamar Jackson. But like we've talked about before, I think this probably goes to the quarterback that gets the 1 seed in one of these divisions. And so I have the 4 quarterbacks that I think are jockeying for the 1 seeds as my, quarterbacks on that list.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is the one that fell out of my top 5 because I think, the Lamar Jackson passing and rushing dual crate this season's kind of faded away. But the Ravens are still a solid team, and I still think that they're going to be the top seed. But Lamar Jackson is not playing. He's not playing his MVP like football from 2 years ago. So, but that being said, someone who's gone into my top 5, Aaron Rodgers, because you can't really say anything negative against him at this point, other than maybe his vaccine stance. But he just works with Green Bay. That is, with Devontae Adams. They don't have Aaron Jones for the rest of the year, I don't think.
He played. He played yesterday. Aaron Jones played yesterday.
I thought it was A.J. Dillon that still played.
No, A.J. Dillon also played, but Aaron Jones came back. He was only supposed to be out a few weeks, and he was able to come back. So,
that being said, Aaron Jones did not he rushed 10 times for 23 yards.
Yeah, he probably
one target, so he probably didn't play a whole lot because he's coming back from injury, but.
They've got
AJ Dillon didn't put a whole lot of stats up either. Literally, their win over one of the best teams in the league was pretty much all Aaron Rodgers and their defense. Aaron Rodgers didn't turn over the ball. Aaron Rodgers had 3 total touchdowns. Devontae Adams over 100 yards receiving. Randall Cobb almost 100 yards and a touchdown. The offense you don't even need to criticize. because Aaron Rodgers is obviously
It works.
debatably the best quarterback in the league, other than Patty.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, their rushing attack is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Receiving, just give it to Devontae Adams. If not, give it to Randall Cobb. That's all you have to.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling had like 123 yards last week. So, but
there's that, and then their offensive line I think is still beat up. Like I think
I don't think they have Bakhtiari. No, and they lost the guy who was filling in for Bakhtiari last week too. I don't know if he came back or he was out.
But like the Packers look like a number 1 overall seed team from the NFC, obviously, and it's thanks to Aaron Rodgers. So I have to put Aaron Rodgers at 2, but like we both agree, Brady seems to be the favorite just going forward.
I mean, this is a storyline award, obviously, as we've seen.
It's a storyline award, but
like you still have to back it up. But it was, look at the ascension of Mahomes. Look at the ascension of Lamar Jackson. Oh, look at the rejuvenation of Aaron Rodgers last year. And these were things that we kind of picked up on early-ish in the season. And that's, with Brady, really started that campaign in the playoffs last year where it's like, Brady might be actually the best player. We kind of forgot about him in New England as, the team kind of struggled. And then he took some time to get used to it in Tampa Bay. But then he won in that playoff run, and it was like, Brady's back. And so he kind of carried that into this year. But, Rodgers obviously making a case. And like I said a few weeks ago, I think it's funny because his MVP moment was the game he didn't play because the offense was terrible without him. And the offense couldn't score. They scored 1 touchdown on the Chiefs, whose defense was probably better at that point, not where it's at now, but still struggling. Meanwhile, he was able to beat the undefeated Cardinals without his top 3 receivers. So, it'll be funny if we look back and we go, the moment where, that's the moment where I said, forget the stats. Aaron Rodgers is in the top 5 of the MVP. And then I don't want to rule out Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I've talked about with his stats, he could end up leading the league in yards and touchdowns, one or the other, if not both. And if they do that and they get a 1 or a 2 seed,
he goes to him.
He's becoming the default guy if because Brady's path is to lead the league in yards and touchdowns. Same with Stafford, who's still near the top of there. He needs to play a lot better down the stretch, but there's enough time for somebody to get on a hot stretch and run away with this award because nobody is statistically dominating at this point. But if Mahomes is the one who throws for 42, 43 touchdowns and 4,900 yards, then it probably will go to him. But I'd like to see Jonathan Taylor. I'm always going to root for the running back or the wide receiver to do it because it's essentially the underdog at this point. It's rooting for the anybody but a quarterback to win the Heisman. And I think
if Derrick Henry was still healthy,
that's what I said.
He'd probably be number 1.
With the way the quarterbacks have been struggling, this was Derrick Henry's time to get that. Because like I was saying for a while, he might break the rushing record and not get it with the way some of these quarterbacks were playing. But as they've struggled, he would have been slowly working his way up if he kept up his pace, which everything about him suggests he would. But Jonathan Taylor probably too late. But maybe he plays himself. It's got to the point where you can bring up Jonathan Taylor and MVP in the same conversation, and people don't think you're a lunatic. So I take that as a win for the second-year running back.
And I'm sure there was some point in the season, early on where we put Cooper Kupp into the top 5.
I did. I put him at number 5 in the first time we did it because he was leading in every passing category, and he's still going to have a great season. But it's hard for a wide receiver to win the MVP.
Oh, I don't think a receiver's ever done it. I think I looked it up, and I don't think one's ever done it. So, and that's including Randy Moss's year with the Patriots.
Well, it's because Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah. Because whoever catches the passes, someone's got to give it to them. But running the ball, that's you.
Yeah.
Running back just gives it to you and you run. So,
I don't think we'll see a defensive player. Love to see it happen at some point. Doubt
if Trayvon Diggs got an interception every single game this year, then he'd be conversation.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be in the conversation. But
Yeah.
So like I have Josh Allen at 3, and it's more of like an emotional kind of pick with that
Mm-hmm.
because the way that I'm ranking them right now these are the 5 people that I think have the best chance of winning it in this ranking. Now between Rodgers at 2 and Josh at 3, I think the gap's considerable. I don't think Josh Allen is one spot behind Rodgers, so to speak, like he's that close. I think it's just that big of a difference between Rodgers and Brady that it's going to go to one of them. Patty Mahomes, I think, is the one quarterback that could have that late season surge that you were talking about, where they could the rest of the year and he throws 300 plus yards.
My ranking of him is more of a projection, like I've said, going for a few weeks because he's starting to heat up, whereas he doesn't necessarily have the full like resume now, but I think he could definitely build that. Yeah.
And the Bills are not done. The Bills still have to play the Patriots 2 times, and even if they win one of those games, Josh Allen looked great at Thanksgiving. And they've obviously been inconsistent as a team, but this is a playoff team. They will be either a division winner or the 5th seed. They are going to be one of those spots. And I would put my faith in Josh Allen figuring it out later on in the season so they don't just blow out teams by 40 and then can't score against the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to get back to their roots to build their foundation and whatnot. And I like the Bills going forward. They could beat the Patriots 2 times. I don't think they will. I think the Patriots will win at least one of those games. And then Matt Stafford at 4. Again, it's kind of just a projection because Matt Stafford is still playing arguably one of his best years of his career. It just doesn't look as great because he's been struggling lately, and there's plenty of other quarterbacks that are playing better. He's got plenty of help to throw to be able to get back on top and hopefully get the division win. But we're kind of spoiled to say the top 5 candidates are not doing anything spectacular. Who's doing stuff the best, basically. Who's the best player on the number 1 seed? That definitely feels like this year. I mean, we're so spoiled to the point where it's like, a couple of years ago, we'd be looking at Patrick Mahomes like, oh my God, he got 50 touchdowns. This kid came out of nowhere. He's the MVP. Lamar Jackson, oh my God, he's Michael Vick 2.0. Here we go. Aaron Rodgers
and Josh Allen last year. Like
they pick a quarterback in the first round, and Aaron Rodgers just goes on the tear. Like, and this year it's like, well, Derrick Henry got hurt, so I guess Tom Brady's been playing the best.
Yeah, he was the guy. I want to throw some out there. Dark horse possibly is Kyler Murray. The injuries obviously, hurt, but like I said, there's a lot of time. If he comes back, say this week, and goes on a 5-6 game tear, leads them to the top of the conference, like we said, there's nobody's really running away with it. Is the only reason I think that it's open for him, because I think this is going to be a year where if there's ever a year to disregard stats, kind of like the thing with Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to have the most passing yards or passing touchdowns or whatever. But we can see just by watching him and by watching the Packers that he means more to that team, and he is playing at the top of his level. So I think this is a year where that could happen. I don't think it will. I think he's missed too much time and even not had the greatest games when he's back there. But, I mean, this could end up going to the player who plays the best over these next 6 weeks. That could very easily be the case. And so that's why
that person for me is Patty Holmes.
Certainly.
It'd be an outstanding comeback if he did that. But he's just starting to worry me now with his injury issues. And same thing with Christian McCaffrey today. Just found out he's out for the rest of the season. Players like that, Saquon Barkley too, like they seem like great picks as some of the best in their position, but injuries are really scaring me with Kyler. I think he has to kind of see where he's at right now.
But just saying is that usually at this point we're down to 2 guys dueling it out for MVP. Last year was Rodgers and Allen. 2 years ago was Lamar, and maybe Russ was still in the conversation. So it's he was
in second place, even though he didn't get a vote, but he was the other person.
Yeah. So it's like usually at this point we've narrowed it down to 2, and one of the guys has honestly more or less ran away with it. We are not at that point at all. We are at a point where we can not have the same 5 guys, let alone the same 3 or 7 guys that you can put in this conversation. So If Kyler Murray comes back and, scores 4 touchdowns a game, he probably wins it. I don't think that happens, but just saying, there's something there. Same with Lamar. If Lamar gets hot down the stretch and, I think this goes to somebody on one of the 1 seeds in either conference, and we've listed basically every reasonable, quarterback of those teams. So we'll see, but team play is gonna, it'd be a lot, a huge factor in that. Moving on to 2 teams playing tonight that really aren't in a conversation for anything going on at the moment right now, with the Seahawks and the Washington football team. No MVP ramifications, no playoff ramifications. Technically, if one of these teams wins the rest of the year, maybe they get a wild card team, but it doesn't matter. Let's be real. It doesn't matter. So I know at one point this was the Seahawks by 1 point. What is it at now? It is Seahawks by 1.
The fact that they're even picking Seattle over Washington, and they're on the road too. That's kind of. I would not be picking Seattle as the favorite. I know
Washington.
I know Washington's just a win ahead, but I don't have any faith in the Seahawks for the rest of the season. Like they're just playing like a college football team in the NFL. Like I have no idea I have no idea what they do every week to practice for a game plan for a game. They come to the game all piped up and ready to play football, and Russell Wilson's ready to compete, and then they just do what they've been doing the whole year. And I don't know what the team's identity is anymore. Is it a run first team? Is it a Russell Wilson team? Is it a run the ball 3 times in a row, even though it's third down?
I think it's a defense team now. Like honestly, and not saying the defense
sucks too. So
they don't suck.
They
don't suck. They're not great, but they've been doing a decent job preventing touchdowns. I honestly think it's a defensive team, which is why I feel semi-confident in them, I guess. Maybe it's just that I have been burned 5 times too many by Washington, and I will not go back to them. But I think, I don't know. I guess I've just been hoping and thinking that every game since Russ has been back is going to be when they finally get a win. And obviously I've ran out of that confidence. But against Washington, they should be able to win. I think the defense can step up and make plays. And, they've done a good job keeping teams out of the end zone. Because if you look at what the defense has done the past 2 games, the defense has put them in a position to win. 17 points against the Packers, 23, not great against Arizona, but they were on the field the entire time against Arizona. So the defense is putting them in positions to win. The offense is just not, capitalizing on that. Hopefully against a defense as bad as Washington's will be the time that happens. We'll see, but I like Seattle in this one, and I'm, ready to get hurt again.
Playing good as of late, but obviously they're not the 2013 defense by any means, because this defense is not good enough to make it easier for the offense, because they are in dead last for time of possession and third down efficiency percentage, which is less than a third of the time they get a third down conversion. So even when they get the ball after a defensive stop, they're probably going to hold it for less than a minute and just go 3 and out on the very first series. So,
but this is against,
they don't get turnovers either. They're one of the worst teams in sacks. So yeah, they can deny points and be a top 10 team in that regard. But they do nothing. They don't average over 20 points a game. They somehow get 300 yards a game, which I don't know how. Like, I think it's because they just force the ball to a running back so much that they just end up squeezing those yards. But even then, they're a bottom half team in rush yards. So this team does not have an identity. The defense has found its somewhat groove for the time being, but they don't get sacks, they don't get turnovers, and the team can't stay on the field long enough. So that's how they lose games.
By no means I'm saying this team is good. I just think they could beat Washington.
And let's take a look at Washington here. So more spread out stats. Top 10 rushing team. So good luck with that, Seattle. They've never been great at really stopping the run lately. Almost in the top half for points per game, but the third down percentage is better. Time of possession is better. Every single stat's better. And this is a Washington football team that was supposed to be the defensive anchor of the NFC East, maybe the league. Chase Young was going to be the next big thing. This is going to be a defensive team, and obviously that's not been the case, but they're going to have a tune-up game tonight because I'm picking Washington to win this game. I'm picking Washington to probably win by more than a possession.
Seahawks are in the top 10 in yards per attempt in terms of rushing for a defense. So if they are decent against the run, obviously the pass is where it kind of falls apart with them not being there at 10th worst in that. So I don't think that Washington's going to be able to beat them through the air. And I'm not picking this in a place of Seahawks confidence. I am absolutely the Michael Scott, I am ready to get hurt once again meme, because I've been doing this the past few weeks. But at some point, the Seahawks are going to have to win again. I think, I think they're a better team.
Point, sure.
I think it's probably going to be Detroit in like 2 weeks.
That's going to be a conversation.
Oh, yeah. I think the Seahawks are a better team than Washington. They don't always play like it, but I think at their core,
they should be. But
they are a better team. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to roll with that and go with the Seahawks. But yes, I'm ready to get hurt again. It might happen, but I'm going to go with and somehow I need Tyler Lockett to get more fantasy points than Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf combined. I'm not exactly sure how that works out, but mathematically, I'm sure it's possible. So, whatever needs to happen, whether it's a win or a loss for them, for that to happen is what I'm rooting for. Because to me, my fantasy team is much more important than whatever the Seahawks do. But that, unless you have a final statement, that'll do it for us.
If Seattle loses to Detroit week 17, you should fire.
No, it's week 14. I think it's week 14.
I'm looking at it. It's week 17.
Oh, it's week 17. Oh crap!
So if they lose to Detroit, fire the entire coaching staff.
Is there a way to intentionally forfeit a football game and they just not play in week 18? But I honestly,
maybe
I might be rooting for that to happen. We'll see. But yeah, a long way to go before that, but we will be with you along the way. Come back with us later in the week on Thursday. We will be previewing the upcoming week, and then next week at this time we'll be recapping what went down. We'll see how our playoff predictions look maybe next week, and by the end of the year we'll see who is much better, because our Jonathan Taylor to be a top 5 fantasy running back wager is looking pretty good for me.
And the Carolina getting more wins than Seattle's looking good for me too.
Is it? What are they? They're only at 5. We'll see what happens. It's close.
That's more than the Seahawks. So.
Seahawks can gain some ground here. Yeah, but Cam Newton just went 5 for 14 with 3 interceptions. So
I thought he had like 20 plus attempts. I thought is what I saw.
Oh, maybe. I know at one point he was at, but the Cam Newton experiment I think has died in Carolina. But we will be talking about that on Thursday, so make sure to tune in then. Also, follow Dash Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with everything going on. I know we've got some Pac-12 news coming in. Even though the season's over, the grind never stops. So make sure to tune into some of those other shows going on. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dash Sports, where you can check out all of that stuff if you miss it live. But until Thursday,